from the shores of beautiful Lake Coeur d'Alene in the heart of North Idaho. Local, regional, national, and international guests discuss their topics on our forum, the North Idaho College Public Forum. With your host and moderator, political scientist, Tony Stewart.
I welcome you to our continuing series that we're doing, which is titled Journey Through 20th Century America. Over a number of weeks, we've been bringing you, in some cases, scholars and presenters from around the country, and also local individuals in our community and college who are portraying famous people under what we call the Chautauqua format. I want to pause to say thank you to the Idaho Humanities Council for a grant that's partially funding this series, along with associated students at North Idaho College and the North Idaho College Foundation. On today's program, we're very pleased to welcome to the year 2000 three people from the past who have been well known in their fields. First of all, under our Chautauqua format, we welcome Esther Williams. She was a very famous swimmer, an actress, an entrepreneur who was born in 1923 and is still alive today in the year 2000. Ms. Williams, welcome to Coeur d'Alene and to our program.
Thank you, Tony.
And our second guest today is Dr. Wernher von Braun, who was an American rocket engineer and is very famous for the work he did on rockets. He lived from 1912 until 1977. Dr. von Braun, welcome to the program in the year 2000.
Thank you for having me.
And then our third guest is Babe Dickerson, who was born in 1914 and died in 1956. She's known as probably the greatest American female athlete of the 20th century, certainly of the first half of that century. Ms. Dickerson, welcome to our program.
Darn glad to be here. Thank you very much.
And I know you're very outspoken and right to the point.
That would be me.
Well, we're very pleased that all of you will be here as we're journeying through 20th century America, and I'm very pleased to have with me today Janelle Burke, who is an attorney in the state of Idaho. And Janelle, as we've done in the past few weeks, I'm sure you look forward to interviewing these famous people.
I do, indeed. And my first question is for all three of you, but we'll start with Esther. What would you most like to be remembered for? What do you consider to be your most significant contribution? Many of us can remember, all three of you, as a matter of fact. I'm sure we'll have viewers out there who can remember you as an individual still living. And of course, in Esther's case, you are still living, even today as we tape this. But Esther, what would you like to be most remembered for?
Well, my life as a swimmer was basically trying new things. When I was a girl learning to swim in Los Angeles, this thing called synchronized swimming didn't exist. And a lot of people would credit me for founding synchronized swimming, and I accept.
And you also were a very glamorous movie star, too, as well.
Well, that was mostly the MGM wardrobe department, but I think I fit the role.
And Dr. von Braun, what you are probably remembered for has a lot of interest for all of us. I think our imaginations get carried away, but you certainly must have had a very, very great imagination at the time it was occurring. What would you like most to be remembered for?
I personally would like to be remembered as a crusader for space. The biggest contribution that I see I've ever made to humankind is the promotion of spaceflight and the development of rockets, and specifically the development of the Saturn V three-stage rocket, which put a man on the moon in 1969. I do not see myself as a hero, and I believe that no monument should be erected in my name, because all I did is help others do what they wanted to do anyway, reach out beyond our little planet and reach the stars.
But you certainly must have dreamed of these things.
I've always dreamt about space travel, and since a very little boy, I have practiced making rockets in the backyard of my father. And poor neighbors, their fences were always broken, but I've always dreamt. I believe that in a society like the United States, you have to win the people for your cause, and the only way you can do it, besides being diplomatic, is by truly believing in what you're striving for and never doubting your success.
And Babe, you're remembered for some things too. What would you most like to be remembered for?
Well, that's an easy question for me to answer because I always, from a very early age, wanted to be the world's best athlete. And that's what I set out to do. And I set out to beat everybody in sight. I said that's what I was going to do, and that's what I tried to do. And I think for the most part, that's what I did. Now, if I made a couple contributions as far as women's in athletics and helping them get involved in sports and getting that on the ball, I think that'd be nice to be remembered by. But for the most part, just the fact that I was great.
And what was your particular field of sports that you think you excelled in?
Well, you know, a reporter asked me one time, is there anything that I don't play? And I said, yeah, dolls. But for the most part, I was pretty good at absolutely everything that I did. But I think people remember me mostly for basketball and for my Olympic gold medals where I did the javelin throw and the hurdles, the 80-meter hurdles, and the high jump, and then for golf. They remember me for golf. So.
Well, we'll pick up there, and I'm going to start in the middle this time with Dr. von Braun. Dr. von Braun, you were not born in the United States, and you came to this country, and there was a great race underway scientifically about not only later the space program, but very powerful weapons near the end of World War II with the atomic bomb, which later would evolve into the hydrogen and nuclear weapons. When you came to this country and you were put on a project, can you tell us a little bit about what you thought about that and who are some of the people you worked with? And I know that one of your rockets in particular really did help get us into space and to other planets. How did that all come about?
After World War II was about to end, I had two options. One of my options was to join the Russian army and work with the Russians on their rocket program, and the other option was to join the United States. Believe me, that option was quite clear from the very beginning for me, and I decided to join our friends from the army at Fort Bliss, Texas, where there was this program going on. First was the assessment part of the program. Nobody really knew what exactly rockets are. It's amazing, but we had to start from scratch and explain a lot of things to our American friends. So our first few years were spent in testing and developing. Things really started taking off when the Russians managed to put their first satellite in space, the Sputnik 1, and when they put their first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. Then President Kennedy got worried about the Russians getting ahead in the Cold War. Therefore, we were ordered immediately to start working on a project to put a man on the moon. Now, I've always, in between those projects, there were a lot of things going on, and we have developed a lot of rockets of distraction in between, but our highest goal has always been, and my highest goal has always been, the promotion of spaceflight. To me, addressing questions like the nuclear bomb, I personally do not see science as having a moral dimension. I believe that the knife in the hands of a skilled surgeon can both save life when it's used just right, and it can both kill when it's just thrust a few inches deeper. Or, for example, the drug that's taken in just the right dose can also save a life, or if it's taken in excess, it can kill. The nuclear energy can be very helpful to humankind when harnessed in a nuclear reactor. However, if it's abruptly released in a bomb, it can kill. Therefore,
so the rocket can deliver a bomb, or they can deliver searching and pioneering in space.
It's not fair. Exactly, it's not fair to ask a scientist whether his drug, rocket, nuclear energy, or knife is better or good.
Identify for us your famous rocket. What was it called?
It's called the Saturn V.
Yes, and that became a delivery system as we did explore.
Yes, it did.
Unfortunately, we don't have much time, and we have three wonderful guests. I'll have one other question, and I'll move to the other guest. Now that you have been gone for a rather several years anyway, and you're now back with us here, what do you perceive, or how do you react to the use of your technology, and what has happened since your death, and what you project in the future? What is, for the United States, for example, are there great hopes in the space frontier for humankind?
There are tremendous hopes. I am finally seeing my rockets being mainly used for the exploration of space. And with the recent development in quantum mechanics that I have heard from some contemporaries of mine I had the chance to get in contact with, it's incredible. Just now we're starting to realize more about traveling to other planets. I've always dreamed of a trip to Mars, and it seems like it might be possible right now. And I believe that people are finally understanding the importance of exploring the space.
People may live in space in the future?
Oh, I
may
believe
find
so.
Solution to certain
They
medical
should have been
problems?
living in space since 1950 if it was for me, but I believe that now it's even more realistic and manageable.
And as this planet becomes overcrowded, maybe that's part of the answer?
Maybe it is, or maybe it's just rethinking our modes of living and adopting a more ecological concept of our life too.
Babe Dickerson, let's talk about you in one particular perspective. In the year 2000, with television and communications as we have them, we know about all the athletes in the world, and both men and women are almost always known as accomplishing in one area. They're a great golfer, someone's a great baseball player, and so forth. I don't recall in most recent times anyone achieving such success in more than one sport like you did. Am I fair to say, and I'm sure you're probably pleased with my statement, that you in the 20th century were probably unique? You've already talked a little about in answering Janelle's question why you were determined to be so active. But in addition to your commitment, determination, most people just cannot develop the skills in different sports. They may play several things, but they exceed in one sport. We saw that recent years with a famous basketball player who tried another sport and he wasn't very successful. I'm just so curious about how you feel about what you did and how there's just some basic physical ability and talents that would allow you to do that along with your commitment.
Well, I think the Lord blessed me with an athletic body, and also I think I came out into this world with just an incredible competitive spirit, because with me, it didn't really make any difference what I was doing, whether I was playing a sport or learning how to type. I had to be the best. It was just who I was. And I mean, if I was learning how to type, I had to be the fastest typist so I could win the medal. Or if I was sewing a dress, it had to be the fanciest dress so that it would win a ribbon at the state fair. I just didn't know how to do it any other way. It never occurred to me.
Were you always that way? Did your family teach that, or was it part of your family?
It was
influence?
part of my family. We were very competitive. I think I was probably maybe the most competitive, but we were always competing against one another. And matter of fact, that's how I learned how to run hurdles, basically, because me and my sister Lily, we'd run down the street and Doucette Street where we lived, and she'd be on the ground, but see, I had to make it harder for me because I didn't want just my feet on the ground, so I'd have to hurdle these hedges, and there were 7 of them that were going down the street, and so I had to make it a little tougher, and every once in a while I'd beat her on those hedges, but it's just who I was. It never occurred to me to be any different.
Never be second.
No,
You
couldn't,
be
no,
first.
absolutely.
In addition to that, you certainly have made it clear your commitment, determination, and your inner strength, but there are people today that are just tremendously competitive in their given sport, but they don't have that same finesse in another sport. I'm really trying to analyze this in a situation. In addition to that, did you have some unusual eye and hand coordination? So this must have been in addition to your commitment. I marvel at the fact that you were so outstanding in more than one sport.
Well, I think that I did have natural ability, and I mean, like when I first took up golf, my drives are all very straight, and all between 240, 260 yards long. My short game needed a little work, but I did have some natural ability. But I have to tell you, I worked hard. I mean, I'd be out there all day long, every day, with no shoes. If I was playing basketball and I didn't have shoes, I'd be out there barefoot, shooting basket after millions of baskets, or striking the golf ball hundreds and hundreds of times till my hands were bleeding. So I guess maybe whatever natural ability I was given, I honed by just practicing incessantly.
Another sensitive question is, as I indicated, you were born in 1914 and died in 1956. You were a very young woman when you died. Did you? I know that there's different things that can happen to individuals, disease that can take, but did you burn the candle at both ends? Do you think that might be one reason why you didn't get to live a real long life, but you sure during that time maximized your living?
Well, you know, I just think everything's by design. I don't think that anything I did contributed to the fact that I got cancer. It was just another hurdle that I felt, another challenge that I felt was placed before me, and even to the end, I was playing golf and wanting it to be that way. I was happiest when I was working the hardest and being the best that I could possibly be. That's what made me happy.
Thank you. Esther Williams, I think that you are famous, obviously as a swimmer, and you've talked a little bit about that already today, but certainly you get great recognition as an actress and in the business, an entrepreneur, swimsuits and so forth. Is there any one of those that you're more proud of, or is there any one of those that you felt a greater satisfaction in doing?
Yes, actually, that would probably be my films. During my years at MGM, I did make several films, and I'm very proud of the fact that I was one of the Technicolor babies. You know, the brand new field of Technicolor, making color available to the public. And I'm also very, very proud of the props at MGM. I had a 1,000-gallon swimming tank, you know, set into glass. I'm just so enamored with all the props that they gave me at MGM. Those have to be my fondest memories.
You had something in common with our other guests that just spoke, and that is that with your swimming, to be really admired and all, I think in any athletic sport is you were very graceful in your swimming and so forth. There was a great coordination and so forth. Do you too agree with our other guests that were you born with certain just physical gifts and abilities, or was a lot of it very hard work to develop those techniques that had not been known before you?
Well, first of all, Tony, it's a great misconception that I was graceful. I was not. When I was first drafted for Billy Rose's Aquacade, which was basically my beginning, I was a champion swimmer. I was built for speed. I'd won, you know, the 100-meter, 400-meter in the national championships. I had a guaranteed place in the 1940 Olympics, which were canceled. And when Billy Rose flew out to LA to see me and recruit me for his Aquacade, I turned him down because I said, you know, I cannot swim pretty. I swim fast. I'm built for speed. But he was so very persuasive that I learned to swim pretty and graceful pretty fast.
So you worked at it, but still there were
Yes.
certain things there that would cause that to happen. One final question to you along those same lines. Did you have that kind of determination and commitment also to have the success you had?
Absolutely. I had an epiphany when I was 8 years old, and my neighborhood in LA was putting in a new swimming pool, and I had always had to go commute to the beach with my older sister to swim, and that was quite the drive, and actually the walk back then. And I learned to swim at the beach, but when we built the swimming pool by my neighborhood, some of the planners asked me to dedicate it. All I had to do was swim a lap across and a lap back, and I was a pretty clumsy swimmer, so it looked horrible. But an amazing thing happened when I got out of the water. I heard applause, and I fell in love with it. And I knew that I would always have to get the applause.
Thank you. Go ahead, Janelle.
I have the next round of questions, and my question, Tony has asked the all-time question about, was your success based upon natural talent or hard work, and particularly with regard to our sports people, but it's also true with regard to Dr. von Braun. But I have a question regarding your personal lives and whether or not there was some attention paid by the media now to you and whether that had an effect upon your personal life. And let's start with you, Babe. Can you say, did you become so much of a media attraction that it somehow had an effect upon your personal life?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Esther on that one because as she was talking, I was thinking, yeah, I loved. I'm a natural-born entertainer, and I loved the attention that I got from being good at what I was doing, and that had a tremendous influence on my drive and motivation. I needed that like I needed air.
So you actually like pictures taken of you and that kind of thing.
Oh yes, those were my happiest moments when the crowd was standing on its feet and having a.
Did your hard work then keep you from having a family life?
Well, no, I eventually married, but he was very much involved in my athletics, and I think that was probably the only way that was going to work out. So he became my manager and promoted me as far as my athletics are concerned, and together he and I established the LPGA, the Ladies Professional Golf Association. So he was very much involved, and it worked out real nice that way.
And Dr. Von Braun, was that true with you as well? You did receive some media attention during your lifetime.
Oh, yes,
did you like it?
There was no greater satisfaction to me than being able to share my vision of rocketry and spaceflight with the American public, and actually motivated to put this tremendous effort behind the rocket project. Therefore, I love the media attention. I've given thousands of speeches throughout my life. My family I've been kept away from media attention for a long portion of my life due to security reasons regarding the projects. Therefore, when everything came out in public, I just laughed and I tried to get involved and get as much media attention as I could.
And in terms of your personal life, did it affect your personal life? Did it affect your family?
My family, I tried to separate from my work. I tried to raise my kids the way I have been raised in a Lutheran tradition, and the media was not so focused on my family. I believe that I kind of protected them from that, and I'm really glad I did that.
Now, Esther, you've had a very colorful media past, and so can you tell us, do you think that the media had an influence on you?
Absolutely it did. If the media hadn't been so forgiving as it was, I would have divorced my second husband, Ben Gage, much sooner. I would have had to. He was making too much of a disturbance at Hollywood parties, and in fact, I wasn't invited to Hollywood parties because he would act inappropriately in the swimming pool with martinis and his clothes on.
So you did have some media attention to you that you might have considered more than you would have liked. It did have an influence on your personal life.
It did actually, but the great thing about being a box office seller at MGM during the time that I was is that we were protected. We were protected very well. In fact, gossip columnists were paid to write good things about me, and well, that provided to be somewhat of a difficult issue in my personal life. They had to find good things to write about, and they avoided all bad, which was good.
And you did marry more
Yes.
than once, of course, and the media was involved somewhat in those things. But the point I'm making is that by the time you lived in the 20th century, the media was already beginning to focus on people who were of note, and the media was already beginning to focus upon the kinds of things that you did, and not just in your professional life, but in your personal lives more than it had before, although not so much in Dr. Von Braun's case, but certainly in Esther's case and in Babe's case. The media began to focus upon you as a person of note and of interest in your personal life as well as what you were doing professionally. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
On that note, we're going to break character. Terry Germaro, we're going to start with you. Terry's one of my colleagues in the faculty teaching at the Social Science Division. Terry, this is the first opportunity you've had as you're a new faculty member of our college to be involved in our program. What has this meant to you? How's it impacted you? How's it affected you?
Well, it's meant a great deal to me, learning about Babe and who she was, and her tremendous motivation and her dedication to, and the fact that it never occurs to her that she can't do something. I just love that so much about her, and her outspokenness of who she was, and no false bravado about her at all. She wanted to be the greatest. She was the greatest, and she didn't mind saying that she was the greatest. And I just think that sometimes it's good to believe in yourself like that. Not sometimes, but and to have that kind of dedication.
And so in things in your life, you're taking that with you?
I'm taking that with me big time.
That's a great testimony for doing a character.
Absolutely.
Our second guest is a student at North College. He's a sophomore in political science, Dylan Delci. We call you Dito. Comes to us from Europe, and we're delighted you're in this country. And Dito, why don't you tell us what this has meant for you? And you've worked very hard, as the others have, on this. I even got to see you portray this character in a class before the symposium.
I just admire the dedication that Wernher von Braun had towards his ideals and towards his projects. And I believe that's the biggest thing I'm going to take from this character is this vision that he had and he was willing to pursue under the hardest of circumstances. I've also had great satisfaction from just exploring another human being. And although he was famous, I believe there's a little bit of every person that we have to learn about, and he was definitely a person with a great character and that I learned a lot of things from.
One thing I admired about you so much, you're a political science major, and this is far afield from what you do. And on the program here, you didn't have time to get into the technicalities, but when you did your presentation, you really sounded like a scientist. You talked about the intricacies of your work and of the rockets, and so that's a challenge to go off in a field that you're not used to.
That was a challenge, I have to say that. I did not know much about rockets.
You pulled that off really well. Our third guest is also a student with a college of freshmen in political science, Helen Kapman. And Helen, what's this meant to you?
Well, I really learned to identify with Esther Williams as a woman, and I strongly affirm as a feminist that women certainly have issues that are the same no matter who they are. You know, issues with men, issues with dealing with their husbands and producers. And
on that note, I'd bring the conclusion. We've run out of time, unfortunately. Thank all three of you. It's been wonderful having you on the program and to have this journey through 20th century America. And thank you for doing the symposium. Thank you for doing this show. It's been a delight having you here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more week of our journey through 20th century America, and with that we would be concluding this specific topic and moving to a different topic after the program next week. But I hope you will join us for that last program on Journey Through 20th Century America before we go to a different topic. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
North Idaho College Public Forum is the longest-running public television show of its type in North America and is seen in 7 states and 2 Canadian provinces. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational community outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us again at this same time next week for another new edition of North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.